Hi everyone, thanks for joining this webinar, and this webinar is a little technical one. In this particular webinar, we are going to talk about the art of securing the PIN, and this may be little technical here because a lot of cryptography part is involved into the entire security of the PIN, right? So again, thanks for joining, and let's get into the subject here. So few ground rules, just to make sure that everybody is, plugged in. This webinar is going to be for 60 minutes. And if you have questions during this entire session, feel free to put it on the, chat for us so that we can take it up subsequently during the end of the session. And all of the, attendees are made into the listening mode. So feel free to put your questions on the chat. What is the agenda for today? So the agenda for today is we are going to quickly introduce ourselves with the PIN, and we are trying to understand what are the different frauds which happens with PIN, and what is PIN block, what are the different algorithms we use for securing the PIN. It's been quite a journey. We have used multiple algorithms to secure the PIN over time. And then we will go on to understanding the Visa PBB method, which is the most latest method what we use as on today, right? So a little bit about myself. My name is Manoj Sharma, and I am leading the delivery and training here at CISA. Entire objective of these webinars is just to make sure that we are able to spread a word of awareness for all the users across, and I am just one participant of the same thing. So as far as my experience is concerned, I have overall 25 years of experience, and with 5 years plus into payment security and 19 plus years into entire cybersecurity experience. I do come from a military background, and I have my competency into GRC, and I also train people for CISSP as well, and I have trained over 2,500 people out there. So you can be assured whatever we talk about is very much quality stuff which we are going to talk about, and everything is tried and tested. A little about CISA. I think by now you might all be knowing what is CISA, but CISA is a global forensic driven cybersecurity firm. We do provide security solutions, payment security solutions to all our clients. And we are engaging with the clients like 1,000 clients on an average basis on an annual thing, right? And then we have over 2,000 plus clients which are spread across the world. And we do also provide cyber security and payment security trainings as well. And we have certified more than 10,500 professionals by now. We are a top 4 PFI, that means for payment forensic investigator. So as and when there is a suspected breach and other things, payment brands, they reach out to CISA for performing the investigations, and accordingly we also learn a lot, and we deliver the same thing to our clients as well. So let's get started. What is PIN, right? So as the name is there, right? Personal identification number. It's a unique 4 to 6 digit number which is only supposed to be known to the card holder, not even to the issuing bank as well, right? That is the reason why these pins are delivered to you with a different payment channel, right? With a different mail channel to you. Whenever you issue a particular card, you get a new card. So the idea of having PIN is to make sure that you are the person who is the legal holder of the card. Nobody else should go and do a transaction in behalf of you, because that is where all the fraud happens, right? So anything which is related to debit and credit card, we always use PIN for card present transactions. For online transaction, most of the time we use CVV2 as the value. Okay, so it is used primarily for card present transaction, that means physical transactions all the time. There are a lot of advantages when it comes to using the PIN. It prevents any kind of fraud. It authenticates the card holder as well. whenever you are doing the transaction. So one of the very important thing when it comes to PIN is to maintain the confidentiality of the PIN. You should never be ever sharing your PIN to somebody else. There might be somebody standing by your side, and they may also see whenever you type your PIN on the ATM machine as well. So all of that kind of confidentiality kind of factor is ensured during all these transactions, and this also prevent any kind of misuse of the card if the card is lost as well. So that is what is PIN. Now, over a period of time, there has been so many frauds, or you can say cybersecurity related frauds when it comes to PIN. Somebody, whenever you key in your PIN onto a ATM machine or maybe on a POS machine, somebody can shoulder surf you and can understand, okay, what is the PIN you are using, and then they can steal your card and do the fraud. Similarly, there are some skimming machines and softwares which are available, which they will put and install on top of, let's say, your ATM. And if you input your PIN, those kind of what do you call it? Your entire card detail will be skimmed, right? And then the attacker can make a similar card just like yours with also the intel of the PIN as well. Then there are a lot of phishing attacks as well, which are targeted towards cardholders. And if by chance they are revealing some of the information to them, or maybe clicking on a particular link, then the PIN can be stolen, right? Similarly, as you know, especially for old age people, we used to keep getting all these phone calls or SMS calls wherein they will ask the PIN from the end user, saying that you have got this much money into your account and all those kind of stuff, right? So that is also where we see a lot of social engineering around acquiring the PIN. Then man in the middle attack is little sophisticated attack. This is normally done by use of softwares and those kind of stuff, wherein when you interact with your bank, in the middle somewhere, the attacker is able to install a particular software or maybe a promiscuous machine which acts as a man in the middle. So whenever the data flows through that particular person or that particular software, it captures your PIN, and the PIN can be stolen thereafter. Also, when we do these transactions related to PIN, the PIN actually travels through multiple entities. For example, when you do a particular transaction, it will go to your acquirer bank, from acquirer bank to payment brand, from payment brand to issuer bank. All these entities also have a lot of employees. And if they have admin access or they have access to these particular databases, they can also have access to your PIN. So these are the kind of common frauds, or you can say common methods of doing cyber attacks when it comes to the PIN. And this way your PIN may get compromised. There are so many other methods as well, but primarily if you look at on the trends, these are the most prominent ones. Let's try to understand a card present transaction first. Okay, a physical card present transaction first. So let's say on a fine day, you go for a coffee and you want to purchase the coffee and you want to do the payment with your card. That is where you are going to your merchant and they may give you some kind of POS machine, point of sale machine, and then you plug in your card. That is called as dipping or striping the card. Then automatically some data from your card will be taken up by the machine, and there's a lot of things happening in between, but end of the day the data goes on to the acquirer. When the data goes to the acquirer is trying to understand if this is card which is related to my bank only, that is called as owner's transaction. If the same card is not belonging to the respective bank, then it routes the transaction to the card network. So card network is nothing but all these Visa, MasterCard, all of them, and they have switches which takes care of all the transactions and they route it to the right people out there, right? So that is where the transaction goes to the card network, because the card network knows which card it is and it is issued by which bank. So they will route the transaction accordingly. Once the transaction reaches to the issuing bank is the final authority to authenticate a particular card and also authorize a particular card. And once it is authorized, the transaction flows back to the card network to the acquirer, acquiring to the merchant, and merchant to the card holder. And that's when you get a slip of your confirmation of the purchase, and then happily you go out of the merchant's shop. So there's kind of a normal phenomena, even if it happens online as well. The end of the basics of the transaction remains the same. Okay. However, there is a very, very important thing here, right? We have discussed about the flow of how the transaction happens, but there is a lot of security element which is inbuilt into the entire process, right? The card details, the PIN details, your amount details, everything has to be plugged in, and it goes as a cryptogram with different entities. So we are going to talk about that, but today's session we are more focused on understanding the PIN block, understanding the PIN security. So the first thing which happens when you actually use a PIN is when your PIN is getting converted into a PIN block. Now, what is PIN block? This PIN block is a particular format of the PIN wherein we use some ISO method. For example, there is ISO method 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Out of this, ISO method 0 and 3 are prominently used in commercial transactions all the time, right? We may also use some more based on the particular card scheme. They may use their own ISO method as well, but prominently what is there in use is ISO method 0 and 3. Now, what happens in this particular method is when you go to an ATM, you type in your PIN on the fly. This PIN gets converted into something called as PIN block, which may contain, for example, 4 bytes of your format code, then 12 bytes of your PAN number, and 16 bytes of the encrypted PIN. So that is how the entire block looks like this when you do this. Okay, and when the same thing reaches on the other end, what they will do, they will take up your PIN block and they will do some operations to subtract the PIN number from this and the padding which they have used, and finally they will extract the PIN. And this entire activity happens on a dynamic basis. It happens in real time. There is no PIN which is stored by your issuing bank, because they are not permitted to store your PIN. But if a particular bank does not have your PIN, how can they validate you, right? So there has to be something which has to happen dynamically when the transaction reaches out there and all those kind of stuff, right? So let's talk about that story a little bit so that you get to know how do these different things connect together and where the story started for securing the PIN. So on those lines, let's talk about very early days when there was no PIN at all, and account number and PIN they were sent in plain text. And that time, because technology was not that huge, cyber security frauds was not on so much of rise, somewhere transactions were happening, right? And during that time, sometimes the line was getting tapped, and your magnetic card was very easy to clone at that point of time, right? But over a period of time, we felt that there is a lot of frauds happening, and for that the algorithm which were adopted by the industry was called as IBM 3624, right? So IBM 3624, initially when it was applied, in this we used to create a natural PIN for any of the customer, and then the transaction used to happen. Problem with this was when the bank used to give a natural PIN to you, that PIN used to be permanent throughout the life cycle of the card. You couldn't have changed it, right? And that was a kind of glitch. Means that was not that much of flexibility, and the confidentiality also was not that great. So that is where the industry came out with something called as IBM 3624 plus offset. Now, what is this offset? As we all know, the acquirer bank or the issuing bank, none of these entities are supposed to store your PIN. So if the PIN is not getting stored, how we make sure that we validate the PIN in the real time? So what used to happen is, for example, when the bank issue you with a natural PIN, and then you go to the ATM machine and change your PIN, right? The system was on a dynamic basis, was calculating your natural PIN, okay? And when you change a particular PIN, right, that was getting subtracted with this, right? Let's say your natural PIN is 1234, and when you change your PIN, your new PIN is 2345. So when these two things are getting subtracted, we get 1111. So this 1111 is called as your PIN offset. And since the issuing bank was not supposed to store your PIN, this was the only value which was stored by your issuing bank, right? And rest all the thing will happen on a online basis, in a dynamic basis. All of this transaction, this particular validation, it has to happen in HSM, right? So what is HSM? HSM is a hardware security module. You can think of it as a black box, and this particular black box is, you know, used to validate the PIN in the real time. Okay, you can just send some commands. You can only send some data to the to the particular HSM. It will do all the processing inside, and it will just let you know the final outcome of it. So that's how IBM 3624 method actually used to work, right? So in a real time, how it happens today? Okay, so when a particular bank issue you a particular, let's say a particular card, right? Let's say it's a EMV enabled card. So EMV card has a chip in the front. Okay, it has a chip in the front, as you can see on the screen. So this particular chip is much more secure than using the magnetic stripe, because it has all the data which was there in the magnetic stripe. That means your track data. Along with that, it also has some security features as well. For example, it also has something called as PVK, PIN verification key as well, which is just shared between the issuer, the card issuer, and the card customer. Once you have this particular PIN, then this particular PIN, this particular key can be used to encrypt all of the data which is there on the transaction. So a EMV enabled card also have an integrated chip, or you can say integrated circuit within it, so that it has some processing power as well as this particular key which is stored in the card is always very, very secure, right? You cannot just by implementing some method to get out the PIN from there. And then what happens is, when you use this particular thing on a POS machine, there will be a mutual authentication between the card and the POS machine. Once that mutual offline authentication happens, then the particular transaction data as well as your other data will be encrypted, and it will be sent to the acquiring bank. This particular encrypted data, it is called as ARQC, authentication request cryptogram. Okay, and then the acquirer bank routes it to the payment brand routes it to issuing bank, and issuing bank will then actually validate your PIN and will also authorize your PIN. And once it authorizes it, it will send a ARPC, okay, authorization response cryptogram. So once it comes back to the payment brand, the payment brand will route it back to the acquiring bank, and acquiring bank will send it to the POS machine, and then the transaction will again be validated by your card, right? And then the transaction gets completed. So that is how it happens in today's world, right? With EMV online payment framework. Okay, so let's try to understand one more method here, which is very, very critical and little complex as well, but we have to understand how does it work. Okay, So Visa PVV method is one of the method which is used to validate your PIN. In this, we do not do a direct validation based on PIN. Rather, we do a validation based on the PVV value. Now, what is this PVV value? Is PIN verification value, which can be pre-stored, created and stored in the card, which might be static in nature. And for every transaction, the card may send the same PVV value to the issuing bank for authentication. However, using the static PVV value is not that great solution, because if the card is compromised, then the PVV value can also be compromised. So in today's world, we use something called as dynamic PVV value, which will actually be generated from your card. Okay, let's see how does this entire thing happens, right? So let's say once you go to the bank and you request for a credit card or debit card, right? It will, when the card will be issued to you, the bank will generate a complex PIN verification key. Okay, that is called as PVK, and it will be embedded into the card during the card customization process. Again, all these customization vendors who are doing this, they all have to be PCI DSS and PCI PIN compliant all the time, right? Then what happens is, one copy of the PIN verification key goes into your card, is getting embedded into the card, and one copy of the same thing will be stored with your issuing bank, the bank which issued you with the card, and it will be stored in a secure database in an encrypted format. Then a PIN verification key index, PVKI. Now, what is PVKI? It is something you can think of. Let's talk about a particular bank. They may issue thousands of the card, and every card will have a key. So when a particular transaction comes to the bank, how the bank will know that which key to use for which particular card transaction, right? So some sort of authentication or some sort of identification need to be required. Okay, when the transaction comes from this bank, this is the key which we have to use. So this index value is nothing but an identification of the key which has to be used by the issuer. This helps the issuer to identify which key to use in the entire transaction. Okay, then the PIN will be issued to you, and then you may change the PIN as well, whatever you like, but there is no direct verification which is happening on the PIN. It is always on the PVV value, which will be generated dynamically. Let's see what happens when the transaction actually gets executed. So customers will enter the PIN during a transaction, right? Let's say there is a card and there is a POS machine you are using. Then the you will dip in the card into the POS machine. There will be something called as terminal encryption key, which will be used to first generate the PIN block. Once you enter the PIN on a particular POS machine, you enter the PIN. The pad itself, the PIN pad itself, it is ISO certified. It has to be PCI PIN certified. So it will then convert your normal PIN into the PIN block based on the ISO format we just spoken about. And then what will happen is, that PIN block will again be encrypted along with other data as well. It will be encrypted with something called as terminal PIN key, TPK. Okay, that terminal PIN key is an embedded PIN key. You can say it's an embedded key within the terminal by itself, right? Then the PVV is generated dynamically by the card and the POS machine, and in some cases it can also be static, but that's not a great method to store the PIN there, PVV value there. So it is most of the case dynamically generated all the time, and then PVV is attached with the other encrypted transaction card data during the transaction. So it will be PVV plus other transactions details. This entire data will then go to the next step. Now, where it will go? After the merchant, it will go to the acquirer bank. Now, small thing we need to understand here is, these different entities who are there, like let's say your merchant and the acquirer bank and the payment brand, and from payment brands to your issuing bank, or maybe whatever service providers who are coming in between, what they do is there is something called as zone. So your merchant and your acquirer bank will come in one zone. We call it zone because both of these entities, they use a pre-shared key. They use something called as pre-shared key, which is called as zone key as well. Similarly, what will happen is when the PIN data reaches to the acquirer bank will always decrypt it first and then encrypt it first. It will decrypt by using the terminal PIN key and encrypt it by the next key, which is shared between the payment brands and the acquirer bank. So this becomes another zone. If you can see, this becomes another zone. Similarly, when the PIN will be decrypted and it will again be encrypted, the entire transaction will be encrypted. Now this time it will use IWK, issuer working key, which will be used to encrypt this particular data. And when the data reaches to the issuer, right, that is where in your HSM there will be a lot of processing happening based on whatever commands goes to the HSM for validation, and the entire processing of the card happens within the HSM, hardware security module. What all activities will happen there? HSM will decrypt the encrypted PIN block using the issuer public key, right? Because it already has the issuer public key. Then once the PIN block is available, it will minus your PAN number from it. That means your credit card number from this. It is more of a complex process. I'm just trying to explain in a very simple format. Once you do that, then a clear PIN will come out. The exact clear PIN will come out. Now, few of you might be thinking, now in this way, the clear PIN is exposed. Don't worry, all these activities happens within a HSM, and HSM is a very, very secure, cryptographic module. It acts like a black box. Nothing goes out of your HSM. You can only give commands to it. You can only give data to it. The only output which will come out of your HSM may be yes or no, as simple as that. Validated or not validated, right? So when this PIN comes out, the HSM creates a 128-bit TSP called as transformed security parameter. This is nothing but it has your PAN number XORed with your PIN number and then PVKI. And then the entire thing is encrypted using the PVK, PIN verification key. If you remember this PIN verification key, we have spoken about when a particular card is issued to you. So when a card is getting issued, one copy of the PVK will be there inside the card, another one with the issuer bank. So same PVK will be used to again encrypt this entire thing, and we use 3DS to do that. So 3DS is a symmetric algorithm which is still being used in payment industry, because many of you may have a question, okay, we are using 3DS, it's kind of deprecated because we are using AES. It may be, you may have a sense that this is getting deprecated, but actually not. Even as on today, we don't have any, instance where the 3DS algorithm has been broken. Another important thing is this 3DS actually is a very strong algorithm, and it works so seamlessly with hardware. So still banks are going with 3DS, but yes, slowly every bank is trying to move onto, you can say, AES algorithm as of now, right? But still 3DS is being used in transactions, and there is nothing bad about it, okay? Then encrypted TSP is then scanned. They will scan it from left to right, and whatever character comes in, for example, for instance, I will show you this snip, okay? So if you can see this, it will scan this number from left to right, and all the integers what comes in, they becomes your, they becomes part of your PVV. That will form your PVV. So 1 and then 8 and then 5 and then 8. So 1858 in this particular case is your PVV, and the same PVV came to us from the card as well. So when the card or when the ATM, HSM compares both these numbers, the PVV value which comes from the card, also the PVV value which is dynamically generated, both of them are compared. And if the comparison is successful, if there is no difference in that, then the transaction gets authorized. Okay, so that is how your Visa PVV method actually works, and this is the exact thing which we use as on today. So this was a short, insight into an education for all of you, how the entire, PIN is secured during all the transactions, because this is more of cryptography heavy. It is meant to be complex. I think this is the best possible way I could have explained you in the very, very simple terms, how this entire PIN transaction happens, how the security is kind of taken care of. Okay, so let's now get into some of the stuff where CISA can help you. So we are the company who provides payment security certifications, training and certifications. We are the first ever payment security certification in the industry, which is NC accredited. Okay, so we have various programs wherein we go into depth and educate you, okay, how the entire payment security world actually works in, how do we need to secure the data, how we need to implement various controls and all of that. And this is going to be a great career enabler for you, because for cybersecurity there are so many courses. There are a whole lot of vendors who are available to give you cybersecurity training, but believe me, payment security is a very, very big skill, and if you are able to make your career into payment security, I think this is the gateway for you. So the first one is CPI SI certification. This is something, it's a 16 hours of training. After the training, you will go for the certification. Once you get this NC accredited certification, you can definitely, you have very strong probability of getting hired by your, those companies who are looking for payment security professionals, right? Believe me, as on today, many companies are struggling to hire quality, professionals who have good knowledge about payment security. So this CPI SI certification, you can see it's a career enabler for you. If you are already done with this, then also we have a career mapping for you, wherein you can go with CPI SI advanced certification. This even goes more and more into depth, right? So it is something like, for example, in cybersecurity, we go with CISSP, we go with CISM and all of that. Now here in payment security, we go with CPI SI and CPI SI advanced. If you are a developer and you are developing payment related applications, then there is a specific program which has been designed for you, that is CPI SI advanced, developer course. In this course, you will go through a training again, and there is a international certification which you have to attend and clear to get your CPI SI designation, right? And then if you're incident response, you work more with SIM and incident response, then there is a CIDR program as well for you. Apart from this, we also provide payment security awareness. We provide payment, security awareness, general security awareness as well. So these are some very, very skilled and you can say very specific courses which you can take in payment industry, because as on today, there is no certification which exists which is NC accredited and which is, opening your door into the payment security. And believe me, companies are heavily looking for CPI SI certified professionals across the globe, right? We keep getting so much of demand about that. So this particular, how the training and the certification will go. When it comes to the training, we provide corporate trainings. That means we fly onto their location and we deliver training. And then there is a 2 days online workshop as well. I know these options may not be the best option for you. Maybe this is something which might be the best option for you. because this is a hybrid program. In a hybrid program, you get access to the LMS for 45 days. In this 45 days, you will take 30 days journey into understanding the entire payment security thing. That means CPI SI. And then on a weekly basis, apart from the learning management system, there will be a weekly instructor-led classes which will be delivered to you. That will happen every Thursday. And this program is a great success because you can do it at the comfort of your home and you can learn payment security thoroughly. Then there is hybrid approach. In this hybrid approach, we actually give you LMS approach, as I told you, and then we are also discussing a lot of breach cases. So one of the key aspects which is the USP for this program is that there are forensic based learning what you are going to get in these kind of trainings, and once you get it, you are going to get certified. These are some of the USPs of the entire program. I think Sudhanshu, if you are there, you can cover these stuff for the audience. Sudhanshu, I have given you permission. You can unmute yourself now. Okay, somehow we don't have Sudhanshu being able to unmute himself. Let me go and explain these things to you. Okay, so these are some of the key things which you are going to get. You are going to get a gold standard certification in payment security. That is number one. And it is a lot of forensic driven, as I told you. So it is just not about implementation. You also understand, okay, where the slip can happen. So that gives you an edge over other students as well if you enroll in the program. And you will also get a CPE of 16 points, which you can go and register for other certifications as well. And you become a SME to the community. You become part of a big community of CPI-SI professionals, and you can also become part of our advisory group as well. And once you pass your CPI-SI certification, you are also eligible for advanced developer, CIDR, other certifications as well, right? So that's a lot. And I think today we have a great opportunity to be here on the webinar. We only give these discounts on the webinar. So if you want to enroll today for this particular program, you can write to Sudhanshu. You can take down his number as well. And we have few upcoming workshops. One is from 11th to 13th of, sorry, it's an old slide, but I think these are in August. We are going to get some, okay, maybe this slide is somehow not updated. So we have a training from 11th to 13th August. And one hybrid batch is starting from 1st of August. So these are some of the batches which are just starting. You can enroll yourself for the same and you can learn a lot to get, CPI-SI certified. So now I would like to take some questions. If you have, feel free to post your questions on the chat and we can discuss on top of it. I'm waiting for some question. I don't see many questions here. I see there is one which has come. How do we ensure the key generation process and relevant process around the HSM are secure as it can lead to PIN? Yes, very much. I think this is a great questions, Evans. That is where, key management is such an important activity, right? It's a very, very important activity. So, we need to make sure that whenever you are managing your keys, you are using an automated mechanism for the same inside your HSM. So all these keys which are generated are random enough. They are not predictable enough, right? So that is also very, very important to understand. And then the security of the key, wherever you are going to store it, maybe you are going to store in a KMS or in a vault, wherever, all the keys which has to be stored has to be encrypted by another key encrypting key. And that key encrypting key has to be even much more stronger than your normal key. So that's the thing there, and make sure that only the relevant people have, only those people who required access to the keys only have access to the keys. I think those are few things. Obviously, this all is based on technology as well, and also process oriented as well, because if there is a loophole in the process, then everything will fail. So that is how we make sure that the key generation is also, very, very important. And also nowadays, if you might have seen, whenever we issue a particular pin for a particular customer, the bank don't even issue it. The customer has to go to a particular portal, register his card, get authenticated, then they can generate their pin. So bank doesn't even deliver you with the pin. It is all taken care on an online fashion, right? When it comes to the key security, the pin security. But obviously, all these PVKI, which are stored in the issuer bank side I'm talking about, all this key has to be maintained in a very, very strong security fashion with multiple layer of security implemented. And we need to make sure that the security is taken care throughout the life cycle of the key. It's not just about creation. It is also about storing or rotating these keys. How frequently are we rotating this? Then when we are rotating, how much is the complexity of the key? And what happens to the old key as well? The old key also has to be deleted in a very, very secure fashion. So, so that nobody gain access to that, previous key, and they are not able to, predict how the key is going to be. So I think these are the key driver factors which comes into the entire. I think, Ivan, that helps. I hope that helps, Evans. And feel free to ask some more questions here, guys. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So if there is no more questions, I think thank you everyone for joining this very, very short webinar. I know this was a little technical, and I deliberately took this because I wanted you guys to understand the technicality behind the pin. So, we are going little technical front on that. But I think it might be a great learning all of you. So let me know, how do you find this particular webinar, and we will meet next time. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.